All right, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to week 14 of your SAT math prep sessions during plug time. This week's topic, we're going to be focusing on two variable data analysis, which involves reading various graphs and scatter plots and answering questions about them. Please make sure that your name, first and last name, appears on the name line and that you have circled your teacher's name and your class, as always. Remember that we are approaching the actual SAT for the juniors, which means freshmen and sophomores. We're running out of time down the road. We got to get this stuff done. Make sure you're writing down everything that I explain and add to these notes so that you have them available to you when you are working the skill check on your own. So the big thing about the SAT with graphs is that they generally come with a fair amount of reading. And the problem there is that we as students have to be disciplined enough to actually read the question and see what we're looking at. So example 1 says, the graph shown to the right shows the relationship between time in seconds and distance from the finish line in meters for Juan while he competed in a race. Which of the following is the correct interpretation of point B in this problem? So point B is this point right here, which apparently is located at the point 65, 0. Now remember that X is your time in seconds, and y, or 0, is your distance from the starting line in meters. So this says that at 65 seconds, Juan was 0 meters from the finish line. The correct interpretation for that would be that at 65 seconds, Juan was at the finish line. Okay, on to example 2. Okay, and we're trying to show you examples of problems that are a little bit easier. Let's see if I can get this to scroll right here. There we go. Okay, the line graph shown to the left shows the amount of snow in inches recorded each year in Washington, D.C. from 2003 to 2015. So again, the first part of the problem here is just explaining the graph. What is it? What is it showing? Okay, it says for how many years in the time period between 2003 and 2015 was the snowfall in Washington, D.C. at least 30 inches. So if we go to the graph, we can locate 30 inches right here. So we're saying we're looking for any point that is at least 30 inches. That would be any point that is above the line y equals 30. So if we're looking at this graph and looking for where are we at least 30 inches, there are 3 years where that occurred. The year 2003, the year 2010, and the year 2014. So there are 3 years where there was at least 30 inches of snow. Okay, our third and final example here, example 3, says in the graph to the right shows Marilyn's distance from her campsite during a 3-hour hike. She stopped for 30 minutes during the hike to have lunch. Based on the graph, which of the following is closest to the time she finished lunch and continued her hike? So when we're looking at this graph, when we see this part here that says that Marilyn stopped for 30 minutes during her hike to have lunch, we want to look for the part in the graph where her distance from her campsite is constant, not changing. So this right here, this section I just highlighted, that's when she stopped for lunch. So that would be the beginning and the end. So if we look at when she finishes her lunch, we don't know exactly what time this is, but we do know it is more than halfway between 1 p.m. and 2 p.m., which would imply that our answer should be somewhere in the range 1:30 p.m., which they have a 0 in front, to 2 p.m., somewhere in that range. And it should not be 2 p.m. It should be between 1:30 and 2 p.m. Well, the only time that we're given between 1:30 and 2 p.m. is 1:40 p.m., which would mean that that would be the one that is closest to the time that she finished her lunch and continued her hike. Okay, so At this point, we've gone over a couple of examples. And again, the key here is you need to read the description, but don't dwell on the description. You need to dwell on the question. What are you being asked? How do you find that from the graph? Okay? Now, the skill check, again, is 6 questions this week. It is a little bit longer. The idea being that you get to see some easy ones, and then you get to see some harder ones. So the expectation would be that you get the first several done and that you attempt the harder ones afterwards. Good luck. Thank you very much for your time and attention.